Hello Year 3 and Year 4, welcome back. It's Monday and we're here again with English Lessons Live with me, Mr. Phillips. Same hashtags, same Twitter handles, same emails as last week. Hashtag St Anne's Live, at St Anne's Rainhill, rsa.year6@3-saints.org.uk. That's how you can get in touch. That's where you can send your work. That's where loads of you have been sending your amazing writing and your brilliant reading work. So keep that up. It's been brilliant. We're going to continue today with our writing, keeping going with the wolves in the walls. We're going to probably carry on this for the rest of this week, and we're going to do it next week as well, just so we can get to the part where the wolves come out of the walls, and then we'll probably go and look at something else. I'm really glad people are enjoying that. I've heard a lot of good comments about people enjoying doing the spooky story kind of element, which is really, really cool. So, before we start with this though, let's do a little bit of a spag starter. Let's get our brains working. And today, your spag starter, Year 3 and Year 4, is the same one. You're going to be doing the same spag starter. So, last week, some of us started to look at prepositions. The idea of positional language. I'm going to write that down on the board so you can see it. Prepositions. And it is positional language. Positional language. So what your starter is for today is to imagine the ball and imagine the box. I want you to try and come up with as many prepositions as you can think of. Now, a preposition can describe the relationship between the ball and the box. For example, the ball can be above the box, and therefore above would be a preposition. Okay? So pause the video there. I know we're really soon for doing a pause of the video already, but pause the video there and see if you can come up with a load of different prepositions to describe the relationship between the ball and the box. Okay? Pause there, have a little go. Right, I wonder how many I can think of. So I've already got the ball is above. Well, if we've got above, it could also be under the box. If the ball was literally sat there, it could be on top or just on the box. It could be near the box. It could be, well, if it was here, it could be next to the box. It could be, if it was here, it could be inside the box. Or just in the box. It could be, and we looked at this one last week, so I don't know if anyone remembers, if it was moving and doing that, it could be going around the box. If it's moving and it's over here and it's moving like that, then it's moving towards the box. If it's going the opposite way, it could be going away from the box. We could say it was below. I'm just thinking of the other ones we've done. So we've done under, so it could be below. We've done above, haven't we? And we've done on top. We could do, there's loads. We could go on for ages and ages and ages. Let's just try and get one more maybe. We could do, one that a lot of people in Year 6 forget. It can be by the box. In the same way that it can be near the box, you say, oh, the ball is by the box. There we go. There's just a few that I've come up with, prepositions. And what's great about prepositions is that when you're quite good at them or figuring them out, you can create great prepositional phrases, which is something we're going to look at today. So, and prepositional phrases you can add on to the end of your main clauses or at the start of your main clauses to give you just a little bit of extra information about where something happens. So, if we had the sentence of the wolves arrived, we could say the wolves arrived above the bed. We'll say the wolves arrived under the house. We could say the wolves arrived near the park. We could say the wolves arrived on a clear and sunny day. The wolves arrived in a large van. No, you could say it, but that's how you can use these prepositions to create prepositional phrases to tell us about the position or the relationship between nouns. Okay, so that's something we're going to look at today. So well done if you've got any of those, or if you've got even more. Okay, so let's rub this off. So far we've written 2 plot points of our Wolves in the Walls rewrite by Neil Gaiman. We have written plot point 1, which is hearing the noises. We've written plot point 2, which is telling mum. Today, we're going to write plot point 3, which is telling dad. But before we do that, should we have a little recap on the writing that we have done so far? So there's the first week's piece of writing, and there's the next day's. Okay, here we go. Lucy heard noises. Every night they came from behind the plaster and wallpaper of her bedroom walls, which were warped and peeling. They were bumping noises. They were bumping, thumping noises. They were bumping, thumping, clumping noises, like someone or something was trying to get in. The following day, Lucy decided to speak to Mum about the horrific, distressing sounds. "Did you hear anything last night?" Lucy said cautiously. Mum could barely drag her eyes from the glowing, always gabbing TV. She shook her head and continued to shovel several handfuls of crisps into her mouth, slurping and crunching the entire time. As Lucy shuffled from the room, she thought that maybe the sound had been Mum. It didn't seem likely. Sorry, on my original plan I had written something else, but when we wrote it on the board, we changed it because we did some live editing. Okay, so if you've actually not been with us last week and this is the first lesson you've joined us for, don't panic, because you can pause the video now. You can go back and listen to that, the example that I've just read, which is what we wrote last week. You can even go back and watch the videos from last week, catch up, get to where we are now, and then carry on with this video. Okay, so we're going to write plot point 3 today, which is telling dad. And I've got, as I always have, 3 little challenges for you to do telling dad. Our first challenge is, like we were just speaking about, I want to see if you can get in a prepositional phrase. A phrase that starts with a preposition. A prepositional phrase. That's our first challenge. Our second challenge is to try and carry on punctuating dialogue correctly. Because we learned, didn't we, 66 capital letter, blah, blah, blah. Punctuation 99, who said what, new speak a new line. We learned that last time to correctly punctuate dialogue. So we're going to keep recapping that so we don't forget any things like the little capital letters that I've seen slipping out of some people's dialogue. We're going to keep going over that. I'm only going to give you 2 of these challenges today. I'm going to really focus on getting dialogue in and prepositional phrases, because there's something else I want us to try and do as well. In children's stories, like this one, if the same kind of events happen, often authors use the same kind of structure to repeat those events. If you think about the Gruffalo, 3 times does the mouse approach different creatures, and even though the interactions are slightly different, the way that it's structured is exactly the same. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing. So what we're going to do today is, while we're writing Lucy speaking to dad, we're going to keep looking back at what we did for speaking to Mum and try and echo that structure, okay? You'll see what I mean in a little bit. So we're not using the same words, we're going to try and use the same structure, okay? Are we ready? Here we go. Remember, you can pause me at any point to just catch up and keep working towards what you're doing. So, let's go. The first thing we did with Mum is we used a fronted adverbial to give us time. We used the following day, Lucy decided to speak to Mum. Well, I don't want to say the following day, but I do want to use another fronted adverbial. Now, it's probably going to be on the same day, so I might use something like a little while later. A little while later, and then my comma. You might do a few hours later, or later that day, or in the afternoon. A fronted adverbial that just tells us, I'm going to rewrite that because it is massively wonky, a fronted adverbial that tells us when this next paragraph happened. A little while later. And then we said last time, Lucy decided to speak to Mum. So I want the same kind of thing. So Lucy maybe approached Dad. So it's the same idea. Ooh, we're out of space there. Approached Dad. And then we said, we're decided to speak to Mum about the horrific, distressing sounds. So maybe a little while later, Lucy approached Dad to discuss and now I need two different adjectives. And actually, maybe I want them to get a little bit more intense. Maybe like each time I do this pattern, it gets more and more intense. So last time I did horrific, distressing, which is already quite intense. I might do haunting. Maybe the haunting, spine-chilling sounds. Lovely, and I have to hyphenate spine-chilling. Two words combined to make one description. A little while later, comma, Lucy approached Dad to discuss the haunting, spine-chilling sounds. Now that's very similar structure to my Mum one. The following day, Lucy decided to speak to Mum about the horrific, distressing sounds. It's the same structure, but with different words. And that will give my audience a sense of familiarity that they know what's coming next. And when we do the boys speaking to the brothers paragraph on Wednesday, again, we'll follow a similar structure. So the next thing that Lucy said to Mum was, did you hear anything last night? And I'm actually going to use that exact same phrasing for my dialogue. New speaker, new line. 66. That's the first thing I need. 66. Did you hear anything last night? Now, I must remember that capital letter. No matter when I'm starting speech, I must start with a capital letter. I've seen loads of speech looking like that. But you need to treat your speech marks just like a full stop. If there's a speech mark, it needs to start with a capital letter. We've got to remember that. 66 capital letter, blah, blah, blah. Did you hear anything last night? Now, that is a question. So the punctuation I need is a question mark. 66, capital letter, blah, blah, blah. Punctuation 99. So finish off my speech marks there. And then who said what? Well, Lucy said it. How did I do it with my mum? So it said, did you hear anything last night? Lucy said cautiously. So maybe this time I want to say Lucy maybe mumbled again, because I want to recognise that she's asking the same question. Did you hear anything last night? Lucy mumbled again. Fabulous. And now I have punctuated my dialogue correctly, and I'm going to keep making sure I do that over and over and over again. A little while later, Lucy approached Dad to discuss the haunting, spine-chilling sounds. Did you hear anything last night? Lucy mumbled again. So, last time I said, Mum could barely drag her eyes from the glowing, always gabbing TV. So I want the same thing now. I don't want Dad to be watching TV, but I want Dad to not really listen and not really reply. Now the book gives us a super idea about why we could do that. Obviously, we kind of ignored the idea of Mum putting jam in jars and we did our own thing. But Dad, in the book, is practicing his tuba. And I think I'm going to do that because the last time Mum was too busy watching the TV, and maybe this time Dad is too busy listening to his tuba so he doesn't hear. So we can kind of play on, you know, repeating the same idea but altering it in that way. So that's what I'm going to do. So do we say Mum could barely drag her eyes away? So maybe Dad could hardly hear his daughter. That might be a really good kind of structure. So, did you hear anything last night? Lucy mumbled again. Dad could hardly hear. Could hardly hear his daughter. Over, because we say we can hardly hear you over, and then we say what sound it is. Maybe we describe his tuba as like a booming tuba, like a really like noise, a powerful booming tuba. So Dad could hardly hear his daughter over the booming tuba. The booming tuba. That's nice to say with the ooh sound of both those words, the booming tuba. That's nice. Dad could hardly hear his daughter over the booming tuba. Perfect. Now what do we have Mum do? Do you see how I keep referencing back to what I did with Mum? So I'm getting the same structure but not repeating the same words. She shook her head and continued to shove several handfuls of crisps. Right, so I'm going to have he shook his head. So I'm having some bits repeated. He shook his head. Now, last time we came up with this amazing, she shoveled several handfuls of salt and vinegar crisps. It was that alliteration. I want to do exactly the same here, but with the tuba. So with a tuba, you kind of like, you puff into it. So I'm thinking that P might be the letter that I'm going to use to try and make my alliteration. So he shook his head and instead of shoveled, we're going to do, I've got an idea, and proceeded, which means continued. Proceeded to puff and pant, as he's out of breath, because he's playing his instrument so much. He shook his head and proceeded to puff and pant, producing, there we go, which means making, and that's a great set of alliteration there. He shook his head and proceeded to puff and pant, producing, right, how can we describe his music? We said it's powerful and booming, so maybe we could say it's ear-splitting and hyphenate that word, ear-splitting, to make it one adjective. He shook his head and proceeded to puff and pant, producing his ear-splitting music. Ear-splitting music. Full stop. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Now, I'm getting towards the end of it, and I know I've not used a prepositional phrase, so I'm going to try and put in a prepositional phrase in the next sentence. So, last time we said, as Lucy shuffled away, And maybe that is a good place to put a prepositional phrase, because we could say the location or the position of that shuffling. So instead of shuffled, I could say retreated, which is like when you're running away from a fight to show that she feels defeated. So as Lucy retreated away, because away can be an adverb, but it's also a preposition, away from the maybe just away from her father, because then away from her father is the prepositional phrase, because it's telling you the position between the two nouns. So yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go back up to the top because I'm worried about my handwriting as I go further down. Oh, do I have enough space? I might not have enough space. I'll try and get one more line in here. As Lucy retreated, because I could just say retreated or retreated away, but I'm going to add in now that prepositional, using those prepositions. As Lucy retreated away from her father, because remember, the ball could go away from the box. As Lucy retreated away from her father, and now I'm going to go up here. And to be honest, the end of mine is pretty much written now, because it's a little bit like, you know, the repetition that Julia Donaldson does in The Griffalo. Because it was last time, it was as Lucy shuffled from the room, she thought that maybe the sound had been mum, it didn't seem likely. So now I'm going to use that exact same phrasing and just replace mum with dad. As Lucy retreated away from her father, she thought the noise might have been dad. Full stop. Maybe I could say it still didn't seem likely, rather than just it didn't seem likely. It still didn't seem likely. Oh. Full stop. Now, just one quick thing I remembered here. I've seen lots of writing that has been sent to me saying that the noise might have been mum or of been dad. Now, of isn't a verb. You can't of anything. So remember, the correct English for that is had. Might had or might have. The noise might have been dad. So remember, not of, have or had. But it still didn't seem likely. Whew. So in some ways, that chunk was a lot easier to write because we were using the same format as we did last time, because we want to build this kind of repeating narrative. In some ways, it's going to get harder, especially next time, because we're going to have kind of set out our format so well that we're going to have to try and use completely different words that we've not used in the mum or the dad section to describe the brothers section in the same way. So let's have a read of the mum section again, and then read the dad section and see how they're similar in structure but different in content. So, here we go. The following day, Lucy decided to speak to Mum about the horrific, distressing sounds. "Did you hear anything last night?" Lucy said cautiously. Mum could barely drag her eyes from the glowing, always gabbing TV. She shook her head and continued to shovel several handfuls of crisps, slurping and chomping the entire time. As Lucy shuffled from the room, she thought that maybe the sound had been Mum. It didn't seem likely. A little while later, Lucy approached Dad to discuss the haunting, spine-chilling sounds. "Did you hear anything?" I want to emphasise that you, so I'm going to underline it, I think. "Did you hear anything last night?" Lucy mumbled again. Dad could hardly hear his daughter over the booming tuba. He shook his head and proceeded to puff and pant, producing his ear-splitting music. As Lucy retreated away from her father, she thought the noise might have been Dad. It still didn't seem likely. There we go. And then we're going to use this structure again to describe the brothers paragraph. Okay, so we've worked really hard there, and because we've used a structure, we've actually finished a little bit earlier, which is really, really good. But this is going to take a bit of time from you guys, because it's not just about taking the structure of Mums and just pulling a few words out and replacing them. It's about thinking how you can piece together everything fully so it flows properly but has a similar structure. Okay, so what I would really recommend is sitting with your other piece about the Mums paragraph next to you and thinking, right, well, what can I pull over? Which bits can I use again and just alter slightly? There might be points where you think of something brand new for your dad section that you want to go back and put in your mum section. For example, I like that I've used a prepositional phrase here, as Lucy retreated away from her father. So actually, I might go back now, because I can do it. This is all still a draft. Back to my mum piece of writing, and I might put in, as Lucy shuffled from, maybe as Lucy shuffled out of the darkened room, and put the out of the darkened room as my prepositional phrase. So I might go back and actually add something to my old paragraphs inspired by my new paragraphs. So at the end of your writing today, you should have 3 brilliant paragraphs. Hearing the noise, speaking to mum, speaking to dad, okay? And on Wednesday, we're going to carry it on and speak to brother. And then next week, we're going to get into the good stuff when the wolves come out of the walls. I'll see you guys tomorrow for our reading session. See you later, guys. Bye.